So, guten Abend. Dann mache ich mal weiter. Da, wo ich gestern stehen geblieben bin. Und sollte auch durch meine Kopfhörer eingeschrieben. So. Und was geht mit den Juroren ab? Die lassen nicht locker. Habe ich den Titel überhaupt richtig geschrieben? Oh, lassen nicht locker. Wer war der Mörder? Ja. Nice. So. Meine Stimme. Bevor ich anfange. Einen Moment. Okay, wieso ist das noch dasselbe? I've considered the defense counsel's request for a further examination of the jury. And I have determined that the court must uphold the defense's judicial right to this procedure. So, counsel, you will now proceed with your second summation examination. I presume this jury is ready, Mr. Foreman? We are, my lord. Very good. In that case, I must ask each of you now to state clearly and concisely for the court the grounds on which you find the defendant guilty of this crime. Okay, let's go. The juror's contentions. The accused left behind evidence at the scene that needed these 3 books of hers. If there was some novel alternative explanation about how the victim was stabbed, I might reconsider. Even if the woman was throwing books, it can't be related to this crime if the window was closed, can it? Dear me, it was only a little book, hardly life-threatening, even with a direct hit. Look, I want just to get this over with, and if I don't bring home some pay tonight, I will be in a tiny bit of trouble. Come to think of it, we had a fire at home a while ago, I gave me the sneezes. Okay, vielleicht befrage ich jetzt mal die beiden. Das wäre ganz gut. Yes, considerably more tangible arguments from all members of jury this time around, it seems. 9. With one notable exception, of course. My learned student friend was unable to find fault in a previous witness testimony. So the court must accept the fact that it was indeed the accused seen fleeing from the scene. And moreover, no one else was even at the scene to commit the crime. Well, if the eyewitnesses are correct, it would seem as if the conclusion is somewhat set in stone. I fail to see how it can be argued in any other way. That means I'm afraid that during the summation examination, it's essential that you establish some other tangible explanation for the facts. But how? What would even constitute a tangible explanation here? Isn't it obvious? Who stabbed the woman and how? These 2 details are all you need to provide. Simply give us a name and a method by which the attack was conducted. And there I was thinking this might be hard. But Mr. Naruto, you have to do it, otherwise this will really be where the trial ends. No pressure then. Anxious. That's quite enough preamble. Proceed with the summation examination, please. I presume you are prepared, counsel. Yes, my lord. Alright, everything's okay. Focus your mind now. Clearly, the key to the summation examination is going to be juror number 4, the maid, or should I say, Mrs. Garrideb. We have a book that disappeared from the Garrideb's house on the evening of the incident, and the 4th book found in the victim's hand. There must be a way to link the 2. Yes, that's what we have to find. Using every wee technique I've learned in my short career so far, whatever it takes. Don't forget to keep an eye on Mrs. Gatherap and how she reacts even to the things other people say. Okay. Auf jeden Fall muss ich erstmal 2 Leute befragen, die nicht wirklich was gesagt haben. Nicht ihn. You just want to get this over with? How can you sit there and say nothing like that? A man's future is at stake here. Well, him and me both then, like I said before. What? I told you already, I'm a day laborer, aren't I? If I don't bring home some readies with me tonight, you will find me floating face down in the Thames tomorrow morning. What? You heard me, my Mrs. isn't one to mess about, you know she can be fierce, believe you me. Another shining example of marital bliss then. A situation like this cropped up the other day. It was, well, do you know? It's funny, but I can't quite remember. Sorry. It was too frightening. The thing, I must have blocked it out. Helpful. I wonder if Mr. Beat will ever be dragged into the Thames by a scarf. Don't even go there, Miss Susato. There must be some way to jog his memory about this. Better fire at home while I go. Equip this needs. Does have anything to do with your decision about the defendant's culpability in this case? Sorry, what said you will have to speak up, lad? Could you tell us more about that fire? It was last winter. My grandchildren baked me a lovely cake on my birthday. I had a 75 candle on the top. I did it. What a sight to behold it was. You put candles on a cake? Was it some kind of devil worship? Oh, of course not. It was an angel cake to celebrate my birthday, obviously. Seems that's a common custom here in Great Britain, Mr. Naruto. Anyway, I mustered all my puff to blow them out. Only I must have blown wrong somehow. The flames didn't go out, but candles went flying all over the room. The furniture gawked and everything added up. The whole place filled with smoke. Definitely sounds like devil worship to me. And by the sneezes, I presume you mean a cold, but how did you catch a cold from a fire? What a fiasco it was. The grandchildren breathed them threw water over me as they tried to put out the flames. And then, because the whole room had filled up with smoke, of course, we had to open all the windows to clear it. Windows? The biting winter air rushed over me like the devil dancing on my grave, it did. I saw a terrible cold from it. It put me in hospital for a while. I won't forget that birthday in a hurry. I knew it was devil worship all along. But something about this old man's story is playing on my mind for some reason. Yeah. We need to demonstrate who, apart from Mr. Natsume, could have attacked the young woman on the street. As well as how he or she could have done it. Yes, but once again, the jurors' statements are full of personal prejudices. A lot of them seem convinced that they're right, even in the face of logical arguments to the contrary. I think we're going to need to pit them against each other to force them to accept an alternative explanation. Yes. I don't necessarily need to find contradictions between the assertions, just a connection might do the trick. Alright, I will see what I can do. If anything stands out, I will go in for a strike. That's the spirit. Let's go. Ja, okay. Also auf jeden Fall, wenn ein Feuer im Haus ist, dann, auch wenn es kalter Winter ist, macht man noch das Fenster auf. I have to open the window to clear the smoke. Ja, warte mal, wer hat das gesagt? Ah, hier, okay. Fenster war zu. Nein, war es nicht, weil war ja Feuer. Deswegen macht man das Fenster auf. These two jurors' statements clearly contradict one another. They do? How exactly, counsel? Don't point at me again, I told you it wasn't me. What's that you say? Speak up, lad, speak up. Juror number 3, do you see? See what, sir? Did you hear Juror number 6's account of his birthday celebrations last year? It seems, despite being a Londoner, he once opened his windows in the middle of winter. Well, yes, of course, because it was an emergency. I mean, obviously, if the room was filled with smoke from a fire, then you would be mad not to open the... yeah. Oh! Exactly. On the day in question, at the time of the incident, there was a fire in the Garrideb household. And Mr. Garrideb had the following to say about it. The whole place filled with smoke. Oh my head! Hello.
Excuse me.
Rule number 4. Do you have something to say about that? Mrs. Garrideb. Oh dear me. What is the meaning of this? How dare you imply that I'm hiding who I really am? It's imperative that you confirm something for the court. So please, it's time to drop the pretense now. What is it? When the fire started in your house that day, did you or your husband open the window? I beg your pardon? What are you insinuating? The room would have been thick with smoke after the carpet and bookcase saw fire as they did. In a situation like that, it's inconceivable that you wouldn't have opened the window. And what if we did? Oh, alright then. Yes, you're right. My husband was frantically trying to open the window, which can't have been easy since I continued to give him a justly deserved book battering, even though your house was on fire. Huh? Oh, you never stop throwing onto the anger substance. It would be terribly bad for the nerves to do otherwise. Of course, I should have realized. That's a significant step forward, Mr. Naruto. You have managed to establish that the window was open. You simply must have that added to Mrs. Garrideb's former statement. Yep. So was sagt sie jetzt? Yes, the window was open at the time. I'd clean forgotten, but it's true. Okay. Smoke. This window to The window could have been open when a woman was throwing books. I mean, it's definitely a possibility. Ja, okay, jetzt kann ich eigentlich die beiden hier nehmen. Der sagt, es ist ja eine Möglichkeit, die sagt, ja, es war offen. Also, ist es falsch. Never mind. Oh, Moment. Nachricht. Das war vielleicht eine Möglichkeit. Wenn ich dachte, dann wäre es halt richtig. Die Frage, was jetzt richtig ist. Ja, der ist scheißegal, der hat einfach keinen Bock mehr. Ja, Fenster war offen, er sagte aber... Window could have been open when the woman was throwing books. I mean, ja, es ist auf jeden Fall da, aber... Irgendwie kann ich das nicht zusammen sagen. Schwierig. Okay, ich muss mal nachfragen. Mal gucken. So, you might be willing to change your decision, you mean? Oh my, such delight on your face, but I'm afraid I shan't be swayed by emotion. Despite what you may think of me, I'm a very modern, metropolitan and rational woman. That's great. If one reads the morning papers, it's all forgotten by tea time, isn't it? So why read them in the first place? You see, modern, metropolitan and rational thinking, wouldn't you say? Not at all extreme. As I see it, an overwhelming, suspicious Japanese man has been implicated by overwhelmingly strong testimony. Despite one or two many postments, I do declare that the man is overwhelmingly guilty. Modern, metropolitan and rational logic, wouldn't you say? Overwhelmingly. But as modern girls are always delighted to embrace new faiths, you know? So it would be only too happy to consider an exciting new theory if you could come up with one. I would be happy to do that too, if only I could. Let's do our very best not to disappoint the modern and metropolitan young lady. Right, I'm glad you omitted rational here. Okay, come on up. At the point when the victim was attacked on Briar Road, we know there was a small house fire in a garroted household on the opposite side of the street. Well, yes, it certainly seems that way. And on account of the smoke, I imagine they would have had the windows wide open in spite of the cold. Ja, das habe ich schon gemacht. We also know that Mr. Gerardip was throwing flame books at her husband. Her husband, who was backed into the corner by the window due to his wife's threats attack. Yes, that's right. So there's definitely a chance that one of the book could have flown past the man and out of the window. Only what? Only I can't really see how it could have gone all the way over to the other side of the road, that's it. That's all. So I don't really see how I can change my decision, really. Oh, I see. That wasn't enough. Was it going to take pursuit these people? Ich habe das Gefühl, das Buch ist vielleicht nicht so weit geflogen. Aber vielleicht hat das Opfer das Buch geholt und ist eigentlich in eine andere Richtung gelaufen. Ich frage einfach nochmal nach. But as we know now, there were 4 books, not 3. Well, what difference does it make? There's every possibility that the 4th book in fact belongs to the defendant's landlord. Yes, that's the part I have a problem with. Sorry? Well, at the point the woman was stabbed, this landlord fellow was at home, wasn't he? Enjoying a fierce scrap with his wife or something, you said? That's not exactly how I put it, no. Well, anyway, the point is, the fellow and his wife were somewhere else when it happened. I think that's what you call a strong alibi. So it couldn't have been the landlord who did it, which only leaves the Nipponese fellow. Honestly, I can't see what all this palaver about it's done deal, isn't it? I suppose it is, since I have nothing witty left to say. Okay, dann muss ich doch ihn nehmen. Genau, und hier. Nein, scheiße. Ich hätte nicht den Mann nehmen sollen, sondern glaube ich die Frau. Das sieht gerade gar nicht gut aus. Ich glaube, ich sollte mich mal vorsichtshalber speichern. Manchmal schaffe ich das mal beim ersten Versuch und manchmal brauche ich ewig. Nein? Okay. Okay, warte. Nicht so gut. books. Mama, muss ich es vielleicht nochmal machen, dass ich die 2 hier nehme? Nein. Okay, Moment. Yes. Jetzt bin ich echt blöd dran. Da habe ich jeden befragt. Aber vielleicht die noch nicht. The first book found at the scene of the crime shows very obvious signs of the fire damage. And the title of the book is The Lion's Pride. The same title, in fact, as the book that Mr. Great Ape told us he had been reading. Well, I really couldn't say. On the day in question, did you or did you not throw at your husband the copy of The Lion's Pride that he had been reading? I did. It was the first thing I could lay my hands on, so I hurled it straight at him. Und drin hier. Not better. And now you came to mention it, yes? He was rather enjoying reading it, you are right. Why did you not reveal this information to the court from the outset? Because I couldn't, you insolent little man, I didn't remember. At times like that you pick up and throw whatever you can lay your hands on as well, you know. I really don't. I really noticed I was throwing a book, much less the title of it. Ja, was ist mit... Ja? What is it, you are number 5? You know something? I've remembered what it was, that memory I blocked out. It was listening to what the screen was saying, brought it all filtering back. Why are you calling a granny, you cheeky devil? I'm Mrs. Great. Wait, I have you now. The man doesn't even flinch. Please tell me that's not because he's so used to be hit all the time. It was about 2 weeks ago now. I would just go back home after work, like... I put my hand in my pocket for the wage I just earned today and I nearly died. There was a hole. Every last penny had dropped out. Oh dear, what a disaster. You haven't heard the half of it, boy. Oh? The wife was cutting up some chicken at the time. I couldn't hardly get the words out, but I told her straight, I've lost the day's wages, love. The next thing I knew, the blade was whistling past my ear, stuck into the wall next to me, at it about an inch deep. No words, just terror. I could smell it then, you know, the god-awful stench of the Thameses. I was sure I was going to end up face down in the muddy banks that night, I can tell you. Now, a real disaster, isn't it? I will never use the word lightly again. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is... When women lose their rag, they will throw anything at you. Knives, hatchets, hammers, you name it. Mr. Nodo, you must think that all women are... Oh Mann. Das regt mich schon dauernd. Bios. Wenn man es ausspricht. Danke für den Follow. Mr. Nodo, you must think that all women are so short-tempered and unrefined. No, I wasn't thinking that. Throwing household objects at people is, well, it's so uncivilized. At least attack with honor, using a bow or the like. What? Attack? Who are you going to attack? Never mind. Anyway, this man's words would be rather significant, I think. Alright, we will come back to the bow and arrow thing later if I dare. Okay, woman in rage will hurl almost everything at you. Oh, Oh shit. Wenn das wirklich passiert ist. Those two statements clearly have a deeply significant connection. Good grief, you mean they don't contradict each other? Explain counsel at once. Jury number 2, do you think perhaps that this could be one such novel alternative? Oh my, whatever do you mean? An alternative explanation as to how the victim was stabbed in the back. What are you talking about? We have demonstrated that the fourth book, The Lion's Pride, that was found at the scene of the crime, originated in Mr. Gardepp's room on the top floor of his house. Therefore, it's equally possible that some other object besides the book could have found its way from the Gardepp's household to the street below. What's that now? After all, Mrs. Gardepp could have thrown any number of different objects at her husband. Isn't that right, juror number 4? What are you insulting me now, you little beanpole? I'm beginning to think that ever since the true origins of this book came to light, perhaps she had a feeling this might be what happened. Also, oh nein, hi Kira, wieder viel zu spät, oh no. Ja, wenn du dann nicht mehr da bist, egal, ich werde dann wahrscheinlich später beim Stream bei dir ein bisschen mal zugucken, soweit ich kann. Aber, ja, viel zu spät. Ja, dann gute Heimreise erstmal. Ja. Maybe what happened? Hm? Ja, genau. Hör ich mich später, genau. Now you listen here, you Eastern Gala, okay. As a foreman of this jury, I demand a straight answer. You give us this yarn about some other object making its way out of the house, but what? What was it? I'm really taking a big gamble here. And it was a bold accusation to make, but I haven't any real evidence to back it up. But I'm certain that at the very least this warrants further investigation. Alright, Mr. Foreman, I will try to explain the defense's theory. The other object that found its way from the Gardepp household to the scene of the crime was... Take that! Oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. Shit. Hero number 5, Mrs. Gardepp. What now? I must apologize in advance for this. Was zu trinken. But I need you to confirm something else for the court. This knife. Have you ever seen this knife before? Good lord, counsel, what on earth are you doing? It's the weapon that was lodged into the victim's bag, man. Uh-oh. My lord, remember that when the victim was attacked, Mr. and Mrs. Gardepp were in the throes of an argument. Mrs. Gardepp was hurling anything she could at her husband, who would be backed up against the window. A window that had been opened to clear the smoke and through which a book sailed to land at the crime scene. You can't seriously believe that the book was found in the victim's grasp? Are you saying that it flew out of the window and across the street to land neatly in her hand? Huh? Even my missus hasn't got an aim like that. Yes. Yes, I admit there are many details we don't yet understand. But at that point, that's precisely why... Moment. We must not allow this trial to end, not right now. Oh my... Mrs. Gardepp, you answer, please. Have you seen this knife before or not? Oh, oh no. My lord, I wish to change my decision. I'm a woman of my word, after all. Thank you, madam. Yes, I agree. I certainly didn't see this coming, but I just don't think it would be right for this trial to come to an end now with so many unanswered questions. Mr. Foreman? I have to agree. Not that I think the candidate at mine. Heißt er denn nicht? Das kann ich schon mal. Fair play? Nein. Yes, you know what? I'm not quite happy about this at the moment either. All together now, ladies and gents. Ehre. We did it? Oh, congratulations, Mr. Naruda. So, as a result of the defense examination, a number of jurors leaning have changed. 2 jurors all call guilty, against 4 now calling innocent. Accordingly, the opinion of this court is divided. And this trial will continue. Woo! Bum bum bum. Nice, nice. Now then, Lord One Seeks, how does the prosecution wish to... Erstmal sein Glas kaputt machen wahrscheinlich. This trial is rapidly descending into a farce. Ah, doch, erst recht. Like a corked wine, the first few sips are bitter enough. Ah, okay. But what follows is so repugnant, it's good for nothing save the gutter. If I may, Lord One Seeks. The defense has just put forward a credible alternative explanation for what happened. Credible is that your considered opinion, Mr. Foreman. The defense argument is a joke to which I barely know how to respond, but let me start by insisting that you must all familiarize yourselves better with the relative position of those places being discussed. What do you mean by that? What's this angle this time? It should already be more than apparent that between the crime scene and the Great household, once a rather wide street, Prior Road. Which means that the distance from the relative's house to the scene of the sum, yes, 15 yards. Let me see, 15 yards, that's around 40 meters. 40 meters? Oh, that's a little further than I imagined. 15 Meter ist gar nicht so weit. And, as you ladies and gentlemen of the jury rightly noted as having pertinent significance, the fourth book was found in the victim's clutches. In other words, the smoldering book wantonly hurled by the lady of the house traveled some 15 yards, to land on the opposite side of the road, neatly between the collapsed victim's fingers and thumb. Is that your final conclusion, my learned and deluded friend? And did the jackknife follow a near identical trajectory to plumb into the middle of the victim's back? This fantasy is somewhat stretching the notion of having a bad day for the victim, I think. Even these pathetic serialized detective stories have more believable plots. There's nothing I can say to that. That prosecutor loves the sound of its own voice. Mr. Sato? Serialized detective stories are pathetic, are they? How dare he? Maybe let's pick our battle here. My lord, might be allowed to speak. A judicial assistant, you may speak for the defense. Yes, go ahead. The prosecution may consider the idea as fantasy, but what the defense postulated was believable enough to pursue the jury to change its leading. And as such, the court has a duty to explore this alternative explanation as thoroughly as possible. To that end, Rule number 4. Mrs. John Garrideb must be called to testify and submit to cross-examination. Sans alive. The cross-examination of a juror. Ja, wenn sie halt dazu gehört zum Fallgefühl. Order, order, order. Well, this is highly irregular. Is this unprecedented for a member of the jury to be summoned to witness stand?
Objection!
And unnecessary. Lord 1-6. There are already witnesses in the stand whose testimony the defense may further cross-examine. If my learned friend's first theory has any truth in it, then both a burning book and a jackknife must have flown to the sky before this couple's eyes. And we must assume that they would be able to testify accordingly. What say you, witnesses? Yes, sir. Constable Rolly Beatley reporting for duty, sir. Well. Good morning, officer. Sorry for dozing until now, sir. I haven't slept for months on account of a villain who's appeared on my beat, sir. Oh, they are so heroic, these London's bobbies. Patricia, my darling, I've been neglecting you, but no more. Oh, Rolly, my hero, you make me so... Oh, no. Very well, I hereby reject the defense's request. And order the witnesses in the stand to testify again. State forthright before the court and details pertain to the defense alternative explanation of events. Yes, sir. Notable beats report. Okay. This case has nothing to do with Mr. and Mrs. Garrideb. Believe me, in London Bobby is good for his word. You see, sir, the windows on the top floor of the Garrideb house are top-hanged casements. Obviously, if anything had been thrown out of the window, we would have seen it. I did leave the scene to go and fetch help, but my trusty Rolly was there to make sure nothing was disturbed. I didn't take my eye off the crime scene for a moment, sir. Nothing strange to report on that front, sir. Well, this is quite startling. Top-hanged casement windows? That detail was not in the police report, Constable. Yes, I'm sorry about that. I must have been a little drowsy. Cannot excuse your sins with drowsiness every time, Constable. Sir. Sorry, but... What exactly is a top-hanged casement window? And you... You cannot excuse your ignorance with such trite remarks, my learned friend. Of course, sorry. I found it, Mr. Naruto. Cast your mind back to the windows in Mr. and Mrs. Garrideb's room. Alright, I will try. The window opens in order to allow air to circulate inside the house. But as its top-hanged casement window, it swings open along the upper edge, you see. I'm glad you have rectified your ignorance. The casement window's most prominent feature is its stay, a metal bar which prevents the window from being opened beyond a certain amount. To prevent its opening? This is all news to me. Absolutely correct, sir. In other words, if a book or knife were to have been drawn to the open window, it would have clattered against the pane and fallen straight down to the pavement below. No. You see the problem then? Good. The education in Windows is complete. There was never any possibility of either the book or the knife traveling 15 yards over the road. That is, unless the window pane had been shattered, something we have discounted already. That can't be. Did you see that, Rolly? That young Japanese man just collapsed in agony. Oh yes, my darling, I saw it. I saw how he crumbled before me. How is this happening? I haven't even started the cross-examination yet, and already my argument's been... Counsel, if you could drag yourself upright again, the court awaits your cross-examination. My lord. Oh good, another desperate situation. Okay, aber wenn das Buch direkt nach unten gefallen ist, wie ist es dann in ihre Hand gelandet? Ah, also, believe me, London Bobby is good for this work. Okay, ich frage einfach mal durch. How can you say that for certain? Very good question, sir. And the answer is this. This is the noble founding principles of the force written on its in reminder to us our policemen of our sworn duty. He showed us that before, didn't he? Did he? I can't say I remember. To patrol the streets of London town and uphold peace of the common man, it's what the job's all about. And this is why I can stand here today beside my long-suffering wife and tell you Bobby's good for his word, while rubbing my tired eyes admittedly. Sir. Oh really, you're so manly. Of course I am, my dog. No, none of this is what I mean. I mean, how can you say for certain that this case has nothing to do with Mr. and Mrs. Garrett? I see, sir. You should have said it earlier, sir. Yes, well, so could you answer the question? That was a waste of time then. Absolutely, sir. I will answer this to the fullest of my abilities, sir. There's a surprising reason why Mrs. and Mr. Garrett's domestic dispute can't be related to this case. But before I get into that, sir, just one thing. Yes? I would very much like you and all your countrymen to understand the great British institution of Scotland Yard. So I hope you will take back some taste of us London Bobbies and how we uphold our guiding principles. I wasn't planning on going back just yet. I've only just arrived here. So, to the end, sir, I would be happy to lend you my warrant card for your perusal. But I must warn you, you won't be able to get through it without shedding a few tears. Thank you, I will try. Ooh. Das gucke ich mir doch direkt mal an. So, principles of policing. At 1, a policeman will strive to preserve the peace within his allotted beat. Okay. And 2, a patrolling officer is expected to walk 20 miles around the beat every day for the furtherance of community relations. Metropolitan police regulations. Any crimes fall under the jurisdiction of the beat in which they are discovered. If the crime is discovered on the beat, a policeman must assist with initial investigations and help detectives. By which you mean they don't open fully, is that correct? Yes, sir. And they're just here to allow a bit of air to the house, you see? So they are restricted as to how much they open. And therefore anything thrown out of the window from inside the room would simply strive the pane and fall to the street directly below. For clarity, allow me to mark the map. Here, the location where objects would have fallen. Yes, directly opposite the scene of the crime, on the other side of the rather wide road. Would it have been so hard for somebody to mention this top-hanged casement thing before? Well, I have another question for you, Constable. And what would that be, sir? How do you even know? Why would you have any idea that what sort of windows Mr. and Mrs. Garrett's house is furnished with? Ah, well, sir, that's very simple. You see, I helped with the investigation yesterday.
Excuse me.
Do you have something to add, Mrs. Mead? Sorry? You look, well, delighted. There's some particular reason for that? Oh, I was just remembering that's all. We were really... we really were so lucky. Lucky? What do you mean? Well, of course, I feel terrible for the poor woman who was attacked. Don't misunderstand me, please. But we are just so lucky it didn't happen on roller speed. It was so close, you see. Oh, I hadn't realized. Yes, that sweet by road, that's the boundary between roller speed and the next one. Isn't that right, my love? Constable Beat. Yes, that's right. That's the reason I was helping out with interviewing the occupants of the Great Ace household yesterday. The house is on my beat, you see, sir. That really was cutting it close then. Constable, I wonder if you could clarify something. If the Great Ace household is on your beat, does that mean that the pavement next to it is as well? Outside Mr. Great Ace's house? Yes, ma'am. The pavement on that side of the road is part of my beat. I see, I was unaware of that. Just think if the woman had been attacked just on the other side of the Bry Road. We would never been able to go for that meal to celebrate our wedding anniversary. But then, that's the life of a Bobby after all. Extraordinary people, our Bobbies, tireless working for the benefit of all Londoners. Do you know what I think? I think it was the good Lord's way of rewarding my Rolly for all his hard work. You think so, my darling? That must be it, my love, that must be it. I think perhaps we should make sure we have that information you're officially on record. Leave it to me, Mr. Nodo. I will take care of it immediately. Okay. Okay, also kann es so sein, dass es doch auf der anderen Seite passiert ist und der Polizist einfach die Leiche rübergebracht hat, weil er nicht wollte, dass es auf, dass er dann dran schuld ist oder irgendwie. Oder dass er das dann übernehmen muss. Das wäre krass. And now it's my turn, I think. Ja. Had been thrown out of window, we would have seen. Ich speichere ihn mal kurz ab. Ich habe so eine kleine Idee, welche Beweise ich vorbringen muss, aber ich weiß nicht schon wann. But according to my notes here, the sun had gone down already and it was dark. But Wally and I were strolling along, gazing at the night sky and looking for our lucky star. Yes, sorry. The star that will guide us to eternal happiness. Can it guide you to answer the question? The flaming book that had cut across the sky in front of us. It would have lit up like a shooting star. And if I would seen a shooting star, I would have met a wished opponent. That would be an inspector, I would have said 3 times at least. Of course, it what with the smoke and everything, we couldn't actually see any stars. In short, are you trying to say? That neither a book nor a knife crossed the sky before you? Yes, sir, that's correct, sir. As sure as the night sky in London is starless, sir. It certainly seems like they are telling the truth. And then we saw the poor woman fall to the ground, so we went straight over to help her. I'd leave the scene. Make sure nothing was disturbed.
Hold it!
Yes, you said that you went to Mörder police box to fetch another officer, is it right? That's right, yes. If it had been on radio speed, I would have known exactly where I was going, of course. Don't feel bad, my love, you can't be expected to know the location of every police box in every beat. Willie taught me the way, only I sort of got a little lost on the way. Sure, my dear darling, that's why I love you. Oh, please. Oh, I suppose I was gone for about 15 minutes. But like I said, my Willie was at the scene the whole time, making sure nothing was disturbed. I was off duty at the time, of course, but a true Bobby is never really off duty, sir. I mean, Newton. Of the crime scene for one moment, sir. Nothing strange to report on that front, sir. Aber wenn da kein Buch war, wo kam das Buch dann her? Nothing to report. That's correct, sir. I had my eyes open wide open the entire time, never looked away for a second. No one else approached the scene and nothing was removed from it. I can swear to that on the yard honor, sir. Really, that seemed a little strange. Beg your pardon, sir. Strange, sir. Seems also regular to me. The spelling copy of the Lion's Pride was originally in the Garrett household. The question remains, how did it find its way into the hand of the victim? Can you shed any light on that, seeing as you were at the scene of the crime the entire time? It could be different copies, sir. One that just happened to burn as well. Even if that were possible, why would the victim have been gripping a book like that in her hand? And we can see from this photographic print, she had a bag over her shoulder. Well, sir, that book was in the lady's hand from the moment we arrived at the scene. Is that so? There's something about the statement that's not sitting right with me. The two mysteries of how that knife ended up in her bag and how the book ended up in her hand. There must be some common thread between them. Can I ask you something, please, Mr. Lawyer, sir? Oh, yes, of course. What is it? You are adopting us, aren't you? Can tell. What? I wasn't really... I mean, what she's doing. Please, just because I'm a woman, it doesn't make me any less valuable. You might see me as the wife of the policeman, but I'm a woman of my word, I am. I really don't remember ever suggesting that I adopted you. No excuses, I don't want to hear it. My voice will be heard. My lord, you will let me speak, won't you? Yes, Miss Sweet, I will allow you to supplement your testimony if you so desire. Sometimes the path of the last resistance is a sage one. That was a very loud mutter. I heard that. The Japanese man thinks a policeman's wife word counts for nothing, does he? Well, watch out, sir, I might let you get away with something like that. But my really won't. Duly noted, Mrs. Beat. Please, I humbly ask you to continue. What could she possibly be about to say, I wonder? Okay. So, Miss never turned me down. My sense of directions is a little off sometimes, though. Ja, was denn? Sag's doch einfach gleich. Mrs. Beat, nobody is questioning what you have told us. I saw it that evening. I saw it clearly. That little Eastern man with the whiskers and the funny curved back, slinking away from the scene. Ah. Yeah, no, what I didn't see as well. I didn't see any flaming books or knives flying to the sky. Very clear. You also mentioned something about having a pure sense of direction. Oh, yes, well, that's a little embarrassing, really. I'm always ending up in the wrong place when I've made arrangements to meet Rolly. He gets ever so cross. Uh-oh.
Excuse me!
Constable Beat is their problem. No, sir. No problem, sir. Did your wife's remark just now bring something to mind, perhaps? Oh, well, no way, sir. Yes, sir. I was just remembering that same thing happened that evening as all. Huh? You mean Mrs. Pete lost her way on the night of the incident? Well, yeah, you see, I sent her off to find a police box in the next beat over from mine, but she was gone a fair bit too longer than I was expecting. I thought she would be back inside 10 minutes, but my darling was gone a good 15. Oh, well, you're such a tease. The reason I was long because of the bouquet, silly. The bouquet? Huh? Sorry, what bouquet are you talking about? Oh, it was a present for you, our wedding anniversary, really so romantic. He saved up for it with the farthings and halfpennies we found at the gutter while it took its rounds. Yes, how romantic. Never forgotten all about it until just now. Had you, my darling? Yes. But that was just between us. Not talking about it to anyone else, darling. You have no promise. Really, what's that all about? Constable Beetle looked very obviously troubled during that exchange. I'm afraid I can't offer any useful insight, Mr. Naruto. But I'm quite sure of one thing. I have to ask Mrs. Beat about the bouquet. Mrs. Beat, this bouquet you just mentioned. I'd like you to add details about it to your testimony, please. Oh, really? Yes, I would love to. What happened was I dropped my bouquet and ended up losing my way for a while. Okay.
Hold it!
I mean, you dropped the bouquet at the scene of the crime? Yes, that's right. I was so upset. And I was run over and saw it was a woman with a knife in her back. I was so shocked. I dropped the bouquet Wally gave me. It was a dark spot where the streetlights weren't casting any light, so I didn't notice it first. And then you went to the police box to report it to the policeman whose beat it was on? Yes, and I came back to the scene together with the other constable, you see? That's when I spotted my bouquet again, but the funny thing was, when I went in to pick it up, it was nowhere near the victim's body at all. In case you need to reminding Mrs. Beat, the victim is not deceased. It was all flustered for a moment before I heard a voice calling me from the other side of the road. Your husband, presumably. That's right, Slimmy, I gone over the wrong side of the street. Although I'm going to blame the bouquet this time, I can't think how it got there, I really can't. The bouquet somehow moved from the one side of Briar Road to the opposite. Curious indeed. Isn't it? But the worst of it is I forgot to pick the bouquet up again when we left the scene. That beautiful rose Rolly brought me with that change from the gutter is but a long collection. My bouquet. Okay, lachen die gerade sehr laut draußen. Do you perhaps mean this sorry solitaire rose? Oh. Oh, yes, that's it. That's a bouquet Rolly brought me for our anniversary, with old bits of change she found at the gutter. Maybe just call it a rose? Tell us, Lord 16, where did you come by a flower? According to the report by the police officer in charge of the crime scene investigation, it was found at the edge of the pavement in front of the Geraldep household. Oh, da kommen die Sachen her. In front of the Geraldep's house. Although it wasn't noticed until the morning, as it lay where the street lamps cast no light. It was believed to be one of no relevance to the case, since it was found on the opposite side of the thoroughfare. Oh, thank you, sir. Thank you. Could I have it back now, please? Now, I think for good measure, this rose should be added to the record as evidence. Oh. But it's a symbol of our love. I want it back after the trial. Do you hear me? I want it back. Oh, good grief. Rest assured that I shall do my very best not to forget, Mrs. Speed. Oh, also hatte ich doch recht. Die waren auf der anderen Straßenseite und er hat die Leiche wegbewegt. Ich hatte recht.
Objection.
You claim, Constable Beat, there was nothing to report. In the 15 or so minutes you were guarding. But that cannot be. So schließe ich das. What do you mean to say? In your testimony just now, Mrs. Beat, you explained to the court that when you arrived back at the scene of the crime with the policeman assigned to that beat, okay, you had dropped, the victim's side was no longer anywhere nearby.
Objection.
Yes, on the opposite side of Prairie Road to where the victim was attacked. But considering the size of the American bouquet, if a single-story bloom can be so described, no doubt it was blown in the wind across the street back into the gutter where it belongs. Mirror?
Objection.
But if that were the case, why did Constable Beat not testify to the fact? No one else approached the scene and nothing was removed from it. Constable Beat swore to the dead on Scotland Yard's honor. But the bouquet belongs to me. It has nothing to do with the case. That's why Wally didn't mention it, I'm sure. No, because sadly it's not only your bouquet we're talking about here. More than one thing in this case is mysteriously the wrong way around. What are you talking about? Think about it. Besides Mrs. Beat's bouquet, there's Mr. Geraldep's book. Mr. Geraldep's copy of The Lion's Pride, which was thrown out of the window by his wife, would have struck the pane of the casement window and landed here on the west side of the street. And yet, it was actually found here on the opposite side of the road in the victim's head. Meanwhile, according to the testimony we have heard, Mrs. Bates' bouquet would have been dropped here at the scene of the crime, on the east side of the street. But in fact, it was actually found here on the opposite side of the road in front of Mr. and Mrs. Geraldep's house. There is no logical explanation for those things. Unless somebody deliberately moved them. What are you trying to say? The way you're talking, it sounds like you think my word is done something wrong. Don't you listen to a word that scrawny lawyer says. Wittering on about books and bouquets, why should we care? It's nitmapping, that's what it is. Oh good, Mrs. Garrideb's come around. You might call it nitpicking, Mrs. Garrideb. But deliberately meddling with the scene of a crime is a criminal offense. It's called, tampering, Mr. Naruhodo. But the person responsible for this tampering cannot admit to it. For a very subtle but compelling reason.
Objection!
Tampering. You have barely heard the term before. Tell us, my learned friend. Who would possibly have had cause to carry out such an elaborate deception? Yes, there is someone who tampered with the scene of the crime that evening. All the evidence and all the testimony points to that one particular person. Counsel, I must demand that you substantiate this conjecture. Who are you saying is responsible for tampering with the crime?
Take that!
Obviously, there's one only person it could have been. Constable Rolly Beat, it was you. What, a policeman, a member of Scotland Yard? What nonsense, why would my body do something like that? There's no one straighter than my husband. No Bobby works more tirelessly for the people of London. Mrs. Beat, you said in your testimony that your husband asked you to go out to nearby police box to fetch the officer on duty. The 15 minutes that you were absent from the scene of is the only opportunity anyone had to tamper with. You're making it up. It's all nonsense, it's all lies. What about the Japanese man with the whiskers? I bet it was him, he did it.
Objection!
If that was true, Constable Beat would have seen him do that. And forgive me for pointing it out, but when you dropped your bouquet, Mrs. Beat, it was after the defendant had fled the scene. Well...
Objection!
First you make accusations about the landlord and his wife, and now you incriminate a policeman as well. But your accusations lack one very important thing. You claim the crime scene was tampered with. But there's only one reason anyone would commit such a reckless crime: to hide something. That's right, he's right. But my husband and I just happened to be there, that's all. So why would we have anything to hide? It doesn't make sense. You have offered no motive for this alleged tampering. And until you do, your accusations are nothing but empty threats. Constable Beat had a very good reason for wanting to tamper with the scene of the crime. That's the key to this entire affair. Mr. Naruto, have you managed to solve this mystery? Counsel, you have made a very serious accusation against a London police officer. If you are mistaken, I'm sure I need to not point out that your reputation as a lawyer will be irreparably damaged. With that star running in mind, you will now explain to the court the motive for this alleged tampering. Yes, my lord. Constable Beat's motive for tampering with the crime scene was to hide where the victim fell. Where the victim fell to the ground. That is what Bobby had to cover up at all costs. What? Where the victim fell? You mean where she was attacked? What are you talking about? We told you at the very start, didn't we? The pavement of Briarwood, we saw it happen, remember? It was right here, as if everyone didn't already know. That's certainly what everybody had been led to believe. But in fact, that isn't where the victim was stabbed at all. What? What? I'm beginning to wonder where this tumultuous trial will end, Counsel. If that's your assertion, then the court is dying to know, my Nipponese friend. Where are you proposing that the crime actually took place that evening?
Take that!
But that's on the opposite side of the road. I don't understand. On the evening in question, Mr. Gradup's book fell directly down from the open window above, and your bouquet, Mr. Speed, never moved at all. What did move was the scene of the crime itself. Good gracious!
Objection!
Perhaps you haven't been listening to the ample testimony the court has heard. But these witnesses both saw the moment that the attack took place. That's right, I saw it with my own eyes. It was 5 o'clock in the evening and already dark. There was the typical London fog in the ground. When you saw the incident unfold and ran to the victim's aid, it was actually on the west side of Briar Road. No, that's not true. It can't have been. Constable Beat then arranged for you to be absent for a while by sending you for help. And during the 15 minutes you were away, that planted the crime scene. He moved all the things shown in the print, the victim herself, the 4 books. He moved everything in fact to the pavement of the east side of Briar Road. Extraordinary. But the constable overlooked one thing. What? What did he overlook? The bouquet, I presume. Exactly. The prosecution told the court just a few minutes ago about the discovery of the rose bouquet. Lord Van Ziek said it wasn't noticed until the morning, as it lay where the street lamps cast no light. Yes, it could be seen in the dark, obviously. Which is why it was only the bouquet that was found in its original position on the pavement on the west side of the Briar Road. And that is the defense's theory about what really happened that evening. How do you respond? Constable Rolly Beat. Well, I'm very sorry. I didn't mean to nod off again, but I haven't slept properly in a month. Did I miss anything important? Oh, Rolly, it isn't true, is it? What the lawyer said is all lies, isn't it? No, it is because you are the most upstanding, righteous man I know. I had a dream, a terrible dream. All the things I did that night, everything come out, everything was... Huh? Only it seems... It wasn't a dream at all. Good golly! Order, order, order! What on earth is the meaning of all this? Oh, why would you do something like this? Moving the corpse is a criminal offense, isn't it? Wishing the victim dead should be one, too. Constable, explain yourself. Why would you do this? As a respected member of Scotland Yard, your duty is to protect the good people of London Town. I can't say, sir. What? I really am ever so sorry about all this. About damaging the Yard's reputation. For everything. I have a possible explanation. For why, on that particular evening, Constable Beat felt compelled to move the scene of the crime. I can think of one reason. What? How could you possibly know? You are a foreigner, presuming to understand the mind of a Scotland Yard policeman. And yet, Lord Van Ziek, it is this foreigner who was uncovered the startling truth of the matter this far. I believe it would be beneficial to the court to hear this extraordinary young lawyer's theory. Counsel of Defense, you please. Yes, my lord. Now then, I think you had better show us some evidence. At once, my lord. Yes. England, Japan, it makes no difference where you come from. Human emotions are the same. Yeah, I think I have a fairly good idea of the feelings behind this man's actions. What gives away the motive for Constable Beat's unthinkable action? Die Regel.
Take that!
I realize that I'm a foreigner in this land. I have only just arrived from Japan. Which is why all this information about London's so-called bobbies is completely new to me. I learned that the honorable patrolling the beat is the most demanding work in the world, for example. Keeping the peace, looking after the citizens on this beat is all kinds of ways. There's no doubt that the young Bobby is charged with a great deal to each day, certainly. But for Constable Beat, the day in question was special. Special? How? On account of his bouquet, Mr. Lord, my lord. Oh yes, it was our very first wedding anniversary. Constable Beat had worked so hard to be able to afford this simple gift for his wife. He was so looking forward to taking her out for a celebratory meal. When he and Mrs. Beat stumbled upon a crime along Briar Road. When he saw that shadow figure into the fog collapse on the pavement ahead of them, what must have gone through the man's mind? But sir, just on that one particular day I was looking forward to celebrating my wedding anniversary. Mrs. Beat puts up with a lot of being married to a bobby like me. I wanted to show my dear wife how much I care. This is the warrant card that Constable Beat offered to lend me to me earlier. Inside, among the rules for patrolling policemen, it says: when a crime is discovered on his beat, a policeman must assist with initial investigations and help detectives. Aha! Constable Beat. Is that or is that not the reason why you moved the whole scene of the crime that day? Yes. Everything you said, so right. So that's it. It was all to do with the boundary of your beat. No. Exactly. To summarize, the incident actually occurred on Constable Beat's beat. Good gracious. Constable, do you realize the gravity of what you have done? It was the first time since I became a copper that I've ever cursed God. Stay close to me, Pat. The criminal could still be lurking somewhere. As we ran over to the scene, I had every intention of doing my duty as a police officer. We've got to report this to the station as quickly as possible. But then it dawned to me. I realized where we were, where the victim was lying, and what that meant for me. The crime is discovered at this beat. A policeman must assist with initial investigations and help detectives. Why here? Why did this have to happen here? And why tonight, of all nights? Why? It's the copper's job to guard the scene of the crime, so I told Pat she would have to go to the nearest police box and fetch whoever was on duty there. It was then when I opened my mouth to speak. It just came out. I couldn't believe the words that were coming out from my own mouth. This is the next beat to mine, Pat. So you will have to go to the police box that covers it. Turn right along Meersham Street and then... I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Oh, Constable. Just that one night to take my Patricia out for dinner. Oh, really? Just that one night. You knew that if the incident was on your beat, your evening of celebration would be ruined. And so you decided to move the entire crime scene outside your jurisdiction. Just across the street to the east pavement of Briar Road, which was under the neighboring beat's care. You see, I thought... Well, I was sure the victim was dead. See? I beg your pardon? Oh, of course he did. Otherwise, my body would never have left the poor woman on the freezing cold pavement. I see your meaning now. But God got me back for my sins, didn't he? That's why I missed the rose I bought for Pat. Oh no, Rolly, that was all my fault. I should never have dropped it such a dark place. Sorry, Rolly. And can you tell us, Constable, how many books did you move from the one side of the road to the other in total? Four it was. Yes, sir, definitely 4. 3 of them dropped by Mr. Natsume, and the 4th being the one that fell from the window upstairs in the Garrett household, of course. But what made you place that book in the victim's hand? When all the others were scattered heavenly around, I mean. Well, sir, that's because that's how I found it. How you found it? What do you mean? When you first went over to the scene, the victim was already holding the book. So when I moved everything, I made sure it was still in her hand. You're sure it was this book, The Lion's Pride, that the victim was holding? Oh yes, sir, no doubt about it, sir. Interesting. Thought it was an open and shut case at the time, you see. There were only the 2 people at the scene, and Pat and me both saw it happen. However, which way you looked at it, it had to be the fellow who went off done it, I thought. I couldn't see the harm, really. I didn't think moving it all over the road would make a jot of difference. I suppose this is for me now. I have had it. My lord. Yes, Lord 16. I believe that concludes the cross-examination of the witnesses. Constable, you may withdraw. Yes, sir. Mr. Prosecutor, sir. What will become of my Rolly? What will happen to him? For now, you are free to go home. The police will contact you in due course. Please don't punish my husband. This was all my fault. Because I'm always mourning at him for coming home late. Leave it now, Pat. Let's go home. I'm tired. Alright then, my love. One last thing, Constable. Sir? let this be a lesson to you. In a criminal investigation, every detail matters, however insignificant it may seem to you. Yes, sir. Carve that lesson in your mind. And never again make the mistake of tampering with the scene of a crime. Never again, sir? You mean to say... Leave. Now. This trial is not yet over. Sir! Der Staatsanwalt kann schon nett sein. Guckt nur stur und böse, aber er ist echt nett. Well, quite a startling revelation, I must say. We were sort of a third party to inspecting the entire scene of the crime like that. Indeed, my lord. Nevertheless, there are some immutable facts here, principally. That the accused, Mr. Suzuki Natsume, is the only person who could possibly have committed this crime. No, I disagree. Now that we know the true scene of the incident, there is someone else. Another person who could be responsible for the knife in the victim's back. Forgive me for being presumptuous, but I believe the prosecution is probably well aware of this possibility already. Lord Van Zieks, is this true? Very well. Name the person, if you will, and if further investigation is warranted. The prosecution has no objection to the trial continuing. We will name this other person who could have perpetrated the crime. Davor werde ich erstmal kurz mal 1-2 Minuten Pause machen, Wasser holen und so und bin gleich wieder da. So, jetzt kann es wieder weitergehen. Wegtun und drüber. Wer war es? Warte mal. Ah, da.
Take that!
The defense would once again like to request the cross-examination of a new witness, my lord. Once again? My assistant made the same request earlier, in order to finally reveal the truth about this case. It's imperative that we cross-examine reward number 4, Mrs. John Garrett. Me? Oh dearie me.
Objection!
That request has already been denied.
Objection!
But the situation is very different now. Mrs. Garrett, answer me this. What do you want now, you little tut? At the time of the incident, you were engaged in a violent argument with your husband, Mr. John Garrett. In the course of the argument, a manor house fire was ignited. And to clear the smoke from the room, your husband opened a window that looks out over Briar Road. What of it? You threw this book at your husband when he was cornered with his back against the window. Upon striking the panel of the open top-hanged casement window, the book plumped directly down, finding its way to what we know and now know to be the true scene of the incident. Yes, and as I said, what of it? During the argument, you were beside yourself with rage. As such, you threw not just books, but anything you could lay your hands on. So, let me ask you one more time, Mrs. Garrett. This knife, the one removed from the victim's back, have you really never laid eyes on it before? I don't recall it. Seriously? I'm supposed to remember everything I picked up and threw at my husband. And anyway, the man over there in all that regalia said members of the jury didn't testify, didn't he? Conveniently, yes.
Objection!
No, I have no recollection of saying that at all. Juror number 4. Huh? Make no mistake, your jurors are no special in a way. You are not immune to the judicial proceeds. Warte, was? Also die Frau? Was schon. Dass du auf Ausdruck achten solltest, Manu. Nur mal so. Make no mistake, your jurors are not special in any way. You are not immune to the judicial process. If you know something about this knife, madam, let the truth come out. But it's a common or garden knife. It could have come from anywhere. We have several like that at home. One went missing. How would you expect me to know? What's that? Are you joking? What are you saying? Please, Mrs. Garrett. Uh-oh. Now you listen to me. I refuse to believe all this nonsense. I couldn't bear the thought that I would injure someone. Do you hear? I couldn't bear it. Oh, the poor woman. Oh yes, I want evidence. I want to see hard evidence if you are going to insist on this being my fault. You are going to have to prove to me that I threw that knife, if that's what you think. Come along now, chop chop, do your worst. Well... What, Mr. Naruto? I had evidence like that, believe me, I would have thrown it at her already. Then take the stand, juror. Oh. The prosecution does not object to the defense's request to cross-examine this woman. Thank you, Lord Van Zieks. I'm going to have to testify? Juror number 4, as I'm sure you will appreciate, having observed it with your own eyes today. Witness testimony can lead to the most extraordinary truth being unwreathed. Truths of which the witnesses themselves may not even have been aware. How dare me? I demand your full and unadulterated testimony, Mrs. Garredup. And mark my words, in this court of law today shall extract the... Do you concur, counsels? Certainly, my lord. Oh, that's what I'm hoping for, my lord. Oh, dankeschön. This is such a strange feeling. For the first time since arriving in this country, it actually feels real. I'm here in the Old Bailey and I'm a lawyer. Witness, state your name and occupation. Oh, yes, my name is John Garredup, and I'm, well, I'm a juror and such like. It sounds like even she doesn't know if she is a housewife or a maid or what anymore. The court has decided our testimony is required in order to clarify matters in this case. Do you understand, madam? Yes, my lord. You will tell the court everything that took place in your household in the evening in question. And I warn you, do not attempt to hide the truth. Oh, dear me. Chin up, Joni. Nothing to worry about now. Also, oh, I didn't know you were here, John. Oh no. Wasn't only you in the room that day, all think, was it? But I think I ought to testify as well, don't you? But what about you, dear? Don't you worry about that. Hardly notice it. I'm not the sort of chap that to leave a comrade to face disciplinary action alone. Oh, John. I presume you are Mr. John Garredup? Yes, sir. Former second lieutenant of the 3rd Regiment of the 4th North Taberland Fusiliers, sir. Seen my fair share of actions and now living the quiet life as it were. Your quiet life, where you not engage in an incendiary battle with your spouse in the day in the question. Ja, ich wollte mich mal fragen, wie alt ist eigentlich denn? 35. Well, yes, quite. I believe this may represent the first in the proud history of the British court. Hey, Kanja! Wie geht's denn so? Und Spoiler und so, ich will... Oh no. Oh ja, es ist immer so ein Hin und Her und ich habe gefühlt kaum Fortschritt, ne? Ich weiß nicht, wie lange das hier noch geht. Oh Mann. Ich glaube, jetzt mein 3. Stream in diesem Fall. Es dauert immer so lange. Aber es bleibt spannend. Ja, also momentan streame ich halt noch das. Ich will halt noch andere streamen, aber wenn ich halt so einen Fall anfange, will ich auch den Fall erstmal zu Ende bringen. Ich weiß halt nicht, ob dich halt Persona interessiert, das werde ich auch noch die nächste Zeit auch mehr spielen, aber wenn ich halt, wie ich schon gesagt, einen Fall anfange, will ich es auch zu Ende bringen. Und keine Ahnung, wenn du halt Bock hast mal zuzugucken, morgen habe ich ja mit einem Collab mit anderen VTubern mit Mario Kart geplant. Kannst du mal gerne zugucken, wenn du willst. Ist halt erst um 11 Uhr abends. Mario Kart, genau. Aber wenn du es halt wieder spielst, Ace Attorney, dann gucke ich ja eh dann wieder zu, wenn ich Zeit habe. Ich weiß ja nicht, wann du wieder spielen willst. Ja, okay. Dann passt's ja. Mal sehen, wie lustig es dann wird. Calling Juroren to the witness stand is unprecedented. However, the court will hear your testimony now, Juroren number 4, and that of your husband. You will recount clearly and concisely the events in your home at the time of the incident in question. Sir, at once. The Battle of Great Ace. Yes, on the day you are referring to, the wife and I did have a bit of skirmish. Can't recall the reason now. Knocked a candlestick over and set fire to the carpet. Soon had it out through and got to the window open. Meanwhile, I was picking up whatever I could find to throw at him. Plenty of knives around our place. Can't say I noticed if one or two went missing, I'm afraid. If that belly thing in the victim's bag really was one of ours, you will have a job proving it, I think. Ja genau, so denke ich auch. It sounds as though it was quite the battlefield in your household that evening. Although an entire one-sided assault, it's... The enemy thought us on the hop, sir, had no chance but to dig in and take defensive measures. To be honest, if the enemy had kept shelling us for another minute, we would have been toast. Of course, a veteran such as myself. One only too aware that on every battlefield you are just a gnat's riskiest from death at any moment. Are we still talking about a marital quarrel here? Well, I must say I'm dubious that this testimony will shed any light on the origins of this jackknife. In combat, one focus narrows such that surroundings are barely noticed. These witnesses may not be able to offer anything more than they have testified already. This may be a dead end. One seeks may well be right. Well, whatever the chances. So, weiß nicht, ob du mich jetzt noch hörst, Kanja. Hast du mal in meiner Info diese Spiele-Info und so angesehen? Ich habe das mal ein bisschen bearbeitet. Ich weiß nicht, ob du es dann gesehen hast, was ich dann so geplant habe zu spielen, was ich momentan spiele und so, was ich schon fertig gespielt habe. Mal gucken. You only have to this last cross-examination to uncover the truth, Mr. Naruto. Yes, I'm afraid so. Very well, counsel, begin your cross-examination. Okay, also ich denke mal. Der Spitze ist ja kaputt, aber das sagt halt nichts aus. Glaube ich. Das habe ich mir schon mal angesehen. Ja. Bam, 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 bam. Bam, 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 bam. Ja, das ist alles klar. So you have no intention of admitting it was your knife, unless we can produce proof. Even though there is no other credible possibility if Miss Natsume is innocent.
Objection!
You forget, my Nipponese friend. That is had yet to be established that the accused is not responsible for the attack. As if I could forget. But there was some way to know who had handled the knife. I suppose recently like that is just a dream. Perhaps I was thinking of fingerprinting, Mr. Nodo. What? You mean it's not a dream? That sort of really exists? Whenever people touch anything, they leave behind a unique pattern from their skin, or so they say. They can't see anything. There are already countries in the world where these so-called fingerprints can be used as evidence. Lord Stronghold is currently discussing the matter at the Ministry of Justice. Yes, I believe we are rapidly approaching an era of scientific methods of investigation. Yeah, but for now we shall have to find an alternative method of proving our assertion. That this knife found in the victim's bag was originally in Mr. and Mrs. Geodip's house. If only I could transplant this whole accident into several years in the future. Oh ja. Ja, okay. Ich will mal nachhaken, weil die kaputte Spitze... schon komisch. Auf jeden Fall. Sorry, would you care to elaborate? Nothing to say, really. Whether practical to the spot of carving, you see, pipes and whatnot, fishing tackles, you know, the sort of thing. It's a passion we both share. I like to carve little wooden trinkets too, and then there's my needlework. Sorry to say, we're always losing knives about the place, and we have dozens of the things. They sell them at the market, sometimes 24 the price of 19. Needless to say, I stamped them up. John prefers to use 2 knives at meal times 2 instead of a knife and fork. Now, John, we don't have what do people think of some kind of... Here we go again with the scoldings. Why are they being so evasive? Imagine it's because they don't want to believe it. They can't bear the thought that it might have been one of the knives that injured the victim. Which is entirely understandable, of course, but still. Go on with your testimony. Sir. Okay, ich muss wohl weiter vorgehen. Ich fange einfach überall nach. The reason is what you told us yesterday, I believe. Yes, that's right. If you remember correctly, it all started because of a note that was tucked into the page of a book belonging to Mr. Gerodip. A rather passionate note, in fact. But Mrs. Gerodip found the note discovering her husband's little secret. And she gave him a mighty number of slaps across the face of her too. What a sordid state of affairs. How on earth? I say, when a chap says he can't recall such things, it's common decency not to track it all up. And besides, half of it was wide of the mark anyway. A likely story. These waters run very deep. And what transpired next after this multiple blows to the face? Not a second.
Hold it!
And the fire also spread to some items of furniture, didn't it? The bookcase, my armchair, anything of mine, really. As so happens, there was some bathwater around that evening, so I sloshed that about to put it out. A most precious situation you put yourself in. Yours is a 3-story townhouse on the west side of the street, where the water main isn't connected yet. Have to draw water from a public water pump during the day if you need any, you see. Lodgers are always mourning that they can't get any water at night. Although that little mustard Japanese man buys water in bottles, I believe. The defendant, Mr. Natsume, you mean? Yes, he receives a stipend for the studies, you know, from his home country. Can you imagine being able to brew a pot of tea at all hours? He's obviously very well off. Have you actually seen the state of the man? I believe he uses all of his income to buy books. Well, anyway, the point is I was able to douse the fire with water, fortunately enough. Meanwhile, I was picking up whatever I could find. Even though the room was on fire. As far as I was concerned at the time, it was more important to extinguish my anger than the flames. When a woman wants to throw, she must throw. That's most certainly not true of a suitor to take down, Mr. Naruto. How did she know I was thinking that? So, please, cast your mind back and try to remember. Was the knife among those items that you threw at your husband today? And all honestly, I don't recall. But I feel I must point out that I'm no monster. Let me see, some bread, a cabbage, garlic, a towel, a sponge, a napkin.
Excuse me.
Do you have something to add, sir? Mr. Garrideb? Don't shoot! Sorry, I beg your pardon. Did your wife's remark just now bring something to mind? Nothing of any significance, no. Just that barrage of projectiles the whole thing launched in my direction. Or was something more solid than the imp's implies, books, bricks, and the fire poker I seem to recall. Ouch. The woman's aim is uncanny, she landed direct hit with every grief, woman, we're not at home now, this is a court of law. Oh, dear me, I'm so sorry, dear. What's she even doing with a teapot in here? Honestly, John, I would never have thrown such things at you, obviously. Well, take a look at this then. How do you suppose that happened, huh? Your pipe, sir. I had this thing in my hand as usual at the time of the onslaught. Knocked it clean out with one of her soft projectiles, did it? Yes. And when I went to pick the thing up, it was broken in two. I'd like to see the sponge do that sort of damage. I see, your pipe was broken. I would never have been sent flying unless it was hit by something pretty solid. Anyway, I managed to bandage the thing up for now. Ah, you are one to exaggerate, aren't you, dear? I wonder what you should make of this current count. Yep, it could be important. Defense believes Mr. Garrideb's remarks just now to be a great significance.
Objection!
This war's veterans' words only tell us one thing. Betray a fire, wife, and pipes as well as hearts may be broken. Sentimental wisdom, perhaps, but hardly worthy of adding to the formal testimony. Indeed, common sense, one might say. Might one? In that case, would you at least permit us to examine the pipe, sir? Well, I don't see why not. Oh dearie me, there you again, trying to incriminate yourself a young lady. Very well, the court will accept the gentleman's pipe as evidence. Okay. I hope I didn't speak out of turn, Miss Naruto. I was just feeling rather disappointed for you that your request was turned down. No, if it's fine. Thanks to the son, we have some new evidence to work with. We'll examine it carefully. Well, thank you for that, rebuttal, Mr. Garrideb. Now, if you could return to the crux of the matter. What can you tell to the court about the knife used to attack the victim? Oh, 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 oh. Oh, something just trinked inside the chamber of the pipe there. Yes, I saw it. Something struck in there, I think. Let's turn it over and give it a check. Das will ich nicht unbedingt sagen. Nee, ich wollte eigentlich nur fragen, um dich abzulenken von das, was hier passiert, kannst du dir mal bei meiner Info auf der Twitch-Seite den mal angucken. Ich habe diese Spielseite, wie heißt das nochmal? Rank 1, ein bisschen bearbeitet. Da bist du vielleicht ein bisschen abgelenkt. Das ist ein kleiner Spoiler hier. Ja. Ja, genau, stimmt mal. Und übersieh das einfach hier, okay? What's this? It's a tiny fragment of metal. It looked like the tip of a blade or something. The tip of a plate? Surely it couldn't be... Okay. Das hat jetzt die Frage. There's a tiny pipe of metal we found in the chamber of Mr. Great Ape's pipe. It looks like the tip of a blade or something. Tip of a blade? Something wrong, Mr. Naruto? I don't really know. There's just something niggling me, but I can't quite put my finger on what it is. Perhaps in that case, it would be wise to examine some of the other pieces of evidence again. Yeah. Nein. Oh, daneben. Da. Stimmt, weil ich habe mir halt überlegt, wie mache ich das am besten? Und da habe ich mir halt so die Spiele aufgeschrieben, die ich aber ab und zu mal spiele und dann eben dran halt Multiplayer spiele. Warum nicht, ne? Und später dann, also später wird dann noch jemand streamen, mit der ich halt morgen Mario Kart streame. Da werde ich wahrscheinlich dann hosten oder raiden, je nachdem. Wenn du dann dabei bleibst bis 11, kurz nach 11, dann kannst du mal da bei ihrem Stream reingucken. Die wird dann heute wahrscheinlich Little Nightmares spielen. Genau, mit ihr und noch einem Streamer spielen wir dann Mario Kart morgen, voraussichtlich. Piece of blade appears to be missing. Yeah, haben wir schon. Wait, part of it's missing? Could be wrong, but I've just got a feeling. Remember this? Ah, that's the tiny fragment of metal what we found inside Mr. Great Ape's pipe. Yes, and just maybe... Oh my, it's a perfect fit. Achso, hat sie ja gesagt. Somehow I just knew it. Oh... Hä? Achso, okay, es wird schon geändert. Ups. Ich kann es proven. Hier. Objection! Und warum ist es falsch? Warum ist es falsch? Was? Oh. Hä? Warte mal, ich verstehe das nicht. Doch, richtig. Ich bin verwirrt. Ich bin verwirrt. Ja.
Objection.
Als ernsthaft? Ich nehme nicht das Messer, sondern das Stück. Hätte man nicht einfach beides zeigen können? Man hätte wirklich beide Beweise zeigen können. Es kommt aufs selbe hinaus. Okay, das ist Schwachsinn. Ah, okay. Aber okay. Die wollen es ganz genau wissen. Mr. Great Ape, could I ask you to take a good look at this, please? You can ask, but I can't see a bloody thing. You can't. Used to call me that I dab back in the regiment, of course, but that was some time ago now. Even though I'm trying to enjoy a large print book by the fire these days. I struggle to tell a B from a D and a P from a Q, to be honest. Oh, he does, Jeremy. It's rather weird being asked about every other letter and every other word. You mustn't be very dizzy. What is that? A tiny scrap of metal. Yes, most certainly from the tip of the blade. And what may appear at first to be just a tiny scrap is in fact a crucial piece of evidence. Ah, interesting. And where did the defense come by this evidence? It was lodged in the chamber of Mrs. Garridip's pipe. My pipe, you say? By Jove, I wonder how that got there. And what precisely does this fragment of metal signify, Counsel? Are you suggesting that it is in some way related to the matter of the stabbing in Briar Road? I am. What? When put together with another piece of evidence already in the court record, I believe this tiny fragment of metal will unveil the whole truth of this case, my lord. You appear rather confident in that extraordinary statement, Counsel. Very well then, present the pertinent evidence to the court. No, I'm lame. Okay, what evidence when paired with this fragment of metal already reveals the truth of its entire case? This here. This is the knife that was found in the victim's back. If you look closely, you will see that there is a small piece at the tip of the blade that is missing. A common issue with the inferior blades sold at unsavory street markets. Criminals who use them regularly have the tips lodged in the victim's bones. And what of this particular knife? No doubt its tip has suffered a similar fate now, languishing somewhere near the spine of the victim.
Objection!
No, that's not the case. The tip of the particular knife's blade is the very fragment of metal we discovered in the chamber of Mr. Garridip's pipe. Good grief, Lord von Zieks. I don't believe it. The knife from the crime scene and this fragment of metal are a perfect match. Good golly gosh! Order! Is this some sort of Eastern sorcery? This is no magic, my lord. This is a miracle. A miracle. So Van Zieks has figured it out, has he? Counsel, explain this extraordinary coincidence at once. Yes, my lord. The crucial point we have to ask ourselves here is when did the fragment of metal find its way inside Mr. Garridip's pipe? Something that was clarified for us in the most recent witness testimony. Ja, während dem Streit ist das passiert. Und dann fiel das Messer raus. Und dann ist das passiert. Oh shit, Alter. Oh, dearie me. Oh. Hi, Cora. A little English, please. Naja. Spiel ist nice. Ich kann es nur empfehlen. Es ist eine lange und große Spielereihe. Und das ist gerade echt spannend. During the argument between these two that occurred just as the victim was on the pavement below, Mrs. Garridip flung this knife at her husband. However, the knife missed Mr. Garridip instead of striking the pipe in his hand at the time, which caused the tip to break off, of course. Good lord! Yes, and that is when the tiny tip of the blade found its way inside Mr. Garridip's pipe. The chance of that are 1,000,000 to 1. And yet, there is no other credible explanation for how the tip of the blade ended up in your pipe. Then, after losing its tip, the knife reached jets of the pipe and flew out of the open window. In short, this knife, which fell from the window of the Gerard's house, is the very same knife that struck the victim in the middle of the back and on the street below. Oh gosh, oh dear. Jetzt rasten die gleich aus. Genau, man ist hier Anwalt. Größtenteils ist das Gameplay, es ist erstmal viel lesen. Man muss dann aus den Aussagen der Zeugen zum Beispiel nachhaken, bis was, bis eine Lüge oder bis irgendwas Komisches vorkommt, dass du halt mit einem Beweis entgegenwirken kannst. Du kannst dann Gegende, Tatorte zum Beispiel untersuchen, mit Sherlock Holmes ein paar Befragungen machen und ja, das Gameplay ändert sich mit jedem Spiel etwas. Je nachdem, was es halt für ein Spiel ist, passieren noch andere Sachen. Es ist halt hauptsächlich viel lesen. No, erwischt. Ah, shit. Von wem der Name? Achso, Sherlock Holmes, ja. Sherlock Holmes, weil Sherlock Holmes ist Urheberrecht. Man darf ihn nicht nutzen. A full body theory, I will give you that. Huh? A complex bouquet of seemingly trivial points possibly arranged to create an almost passable vintage. Allow me to toast my learned friend's characteristically Nipponese approach to bottling his argument. Sorry. But after all, it's just a theory. The bottle, I fear, is corked. Because you see, it's spoiled by an unsurmountable inconsistency. What? Lord 6, explain yourself. What is this inconsistency you claim to have identified? Manu. Manu, bitte Aussprache halten, ne? An inconsistency of the simplest nature, my lord. The victim was found with the knife planted in the middle of her back. Yes, in her... Oh! That's right, you silly little man. Was hat er gesagt? Hat er nicht... Was? Corked. Gekorkt. Die Flasche ist gekorkt. Mit R-K-E-D. Also bitte, erst richtig lesen. Now, John Othing, what are you getting so excited about? Let us consider the basic facts of the case once more. The victim was walking along the pavement before being stabbed in the back and falling to the ground. If the knife had struck her had fallen from above, there's no possible way it could have planted itself into the victim's back. Oh, ja. Ah, shit. Aber ich weiß, wie es passiert ist, glaube ich. Order, order. Quite right, you see, that's exactly right. If the knife had fallen on her above, it would have struck her on the top of her head. Well, He's lost for words, look. I knew it. I never liked his theory in the first place. I don't know, though, what really did happen. It would appear the defense has made rather a spectacular blunder. If a theory has even one inconsistency, it cannot stand. Your theory, my learned friend, is history. We were so close. I could see the truth. I was so sure we were on the right track. But now the way has been blocked completely, but just one simple inconsistency. Or in other words, we simply need to eliminate that one inconsistency and the theory will stand. Miss Susato? You mustn't worry, Mr. Naruto. You were just sort of God, that's all, and your mind went blank. But if the path you were on is indeed correct, then a way will present itself. Key to this is the court record, I'm sure. All the information you need is there. It seems you have nothing to say, my Nipponese friend. Well, your silence speaks volumes. A tacit acceptance that your theory is fatally flawed.
Objection!
This inconsistency doesn't mean I was on the wrong track. It means that I need to sharpen my mind and dig deeper for the truth. It's a test. Yes, und kurz speichern. So ist komplett verkacke. The knife fell on the victim from above. There's no way that it could have hit her in the middle of her back. Under normal circumstances, that is. What are you implying? Ja, hat es. Also die ersten Games waren eher 2D. Und da hat man auch nicht so viele Zeugen auf einmal zu befragen, man nur so einen. Aber das, so 3D, ist auch richtig nice gemacht. Counsel. There's a piece of evidence in the court record that can explain this inconsistency. Und also, die Hauptteile spielen eigentlich auch in unserer heutigen Zeit. Dieses Spiel ist also eine eigene Serie. Das ist sozusagen dieser Vorfahre von dem eigentlichen Hauptcharakter. Das spielt halt ein bisschen weiter in der Vergangenheit, aber ist auch cool. There's a piece of evidence in the court record that can explain this inconsistency. That can explain how the knife that fell from above could have pierced the victim's back. We already have the answer. Goodness! Hatte madness? Surely this must be the last time. Genau. Auf der Switch und auch für PC gibt's das Spiel. Counsel, present the evidence of which you speak. This is the last inconsistency, the final piece in the puzzle. If I can successfully make sense of this, the truth will be laid bare at last. Ich hoffe mal, es dauert nicht mehr so lang. Und dann bin ich für heute fertig. The evidence that explains how the falling knife became lodged in the victim's bag is...
Take that!
This, the fourth book found at the scene. Is this the final piece of evidence the defense will present? The burnt book? Is that not Mr. Great Ace's book? Yes, and to understand its significance, we have to consider how it came to be the scene in the first place. This photographic print clearly shows the book in question. The victim holding it in her hand. But as we all know now, it was the police constable that put the book between her fingers like that. Right so, as part of the wholesome transporting of the crime scene to the opposite side of the road. That's true. However, as part of his testimony, Constable Beat made an extremely enlightened statement on that point. But what made you place that book in the victim's hand? Oh well, yes sir, that's because that's how I found it. When we first went over to the scene, the victim was already holding the book. So when I moved everything, I made sure it was still in her hand. In other words, the victim had already picked the book up of her own violation. And clearly that must have been before she suffered the knife wound. Well, I should say so. After being attacked with the knife, I don't imagine she would be doing much of anything. So the question becomes, why did the victim have that book in her hand? But by Jingo, I think I'm beginning to see what may have happened now. Oh dearie me. Yeah. We know that the book fell from the top floor of the Great household into the pavement below, at precisely the moment that the victim was walking past. Yes, at exactly that moment. The young woman was walking along the street in the light fog, when all of a sudden, a book fell right in front of her. The book I threw? Yes, Mrs. Garrett, and what do you think the woman did? What would you do if you were walking along and suddenly a book landed in front of you and the pavement? Well, I really can't imagine it, but I suppose she might have reached down and picked the book up? Yes, that is exactly what the woman in fact did. She picked up the book. Oh heavens! And when the woman reached down to pick the fallen book up, what position would her bag have been in? That's right, facing the sky, completely and utterly defenseless. Then, in the very next moment, while the woman was still bent over picking up the book, the next object fell from the room above, the jackknife, straight into the middle of her bag. And at the same time, working by chance directly behind Miss Green, was the defendant, Mr. Soseki Natsume. Well, It appeared to Mr. Natsume that the woman simply collapsed on the floor. In the dark and the fog, he didn't see the knife falling on her from above. And from the other direction, the constable and his wife saw no one but the victim and her apparent attacker. So there never was a real culprit to run from the scene in the first place. No, this was nothing more than a series of unlikely events that culminated in an unfortunate accident. And that is the real truth behind this case. Well, Mr. and Mrs. Garrett, the very first time you showed me that knife, I had my suspicions. I wondered if perhaps it might have been something like that. There, all been. Poor Mrs. Garrett. Of course, I never meant for anything of the sort to happen, but it was all my fault, wasn't it? I take full responsibility. I let my anger get the better of me. I threw that book. And I threw the knife as well. John, dear. It's alright. I know. I'm ever so sorry. Truly. I'm sorry. Oh shit. Okay. Lord 16, what news of Mrs. Garrett? She's been taken to the infirmary. It would appear that today's events had left her in an especially flustered state. However, I believe she will recover in due course. There's no cause of concern. Yes, unbeknownst to themselves, they caused that could easily have been a terrible tragedy. They shall have to prepare themselves for the consequences of their actions. There is some good news, however, my lord. I have just had word from the hospital where the victim is being treated. Her condition is improving steadily and the doctor believes she will regain consciousness soon. Oh, it's strange. We have been talking about the victim all this time, but we never once meet her. Oh, wonderful. The woman is out of danger, it seems. Yes, that is good news. So, Mr. Soseki Natsume? Yes. On behalf of my fellow countrymen, I would like to take the opportunity to beg your pardon, sir. You came from your distant eastern homeland to study our great British culture, and have been repaid with immeasurable unkindness. Please accept our hurtful apologies. No, it is me who shouldn't be begging your pardon. Oh, no, Mr. Natsume. That evening, when the young woman just collapsed on the pavement before my eyes, I jumped to the wrong conclusion again, and in my confusion... What conclusion, sir? I was sure that the woman was dead. Yes, Constable Pete said the same thing, didn't he? He thought she had been killed, too. I suppose she must have looked completely lifeless. It's been about a year since I arrived in Great Britain now, but I still can't get used to live here. I can't relax. I'm sure there are evil spirits lurking in the fog, like they're hunting me. Poor Soseki-san, his imagination really has got the better of him. Yes, poor man. So when it happened, I thought the young woman had been taken by the fog spirits. I should never have dropped my books like that and run away. I should have called for help, for a doctor, for the police. Instead, I have managed to create a rift in the relationship of trust between our two empires. And for that, I am truly sorry. One could indeed say that some sort of mischievous spirit has been at work here, I think. One that created a chain of unfounded mishaps. We were befooled by the spirit and led to false conclusions. But thanks to Lord Van Seeks and our young lawyer here from the east, that chain has now been broken and the spirit exorcised. I heartily commend you both. Oh. Now then, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. Yes, my lord. I concluding this trial, I must ask one last time for your decisions regarding the defendant's culpability. Are you ready to present your findings to the court? As the foreman of this jury, I can assure you we have reached a fair and just conclusion. I do declare the truth can be extremely cruel at times. Well, I didn't suspect the woman next to me, that's for sure. Sitting in for the old bean whilst she's out of action, you know, but I know what her decision would be. Does that mean I finally be able to go out of here and start work? Well, it's about time. I say I have to conquer off a story to tell the grandchildren when I get home, won't I? Very well, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I hereby demand your final decisions. Mr. Foreman.
Not guilty.
Not guilty.
Not guilty.
Not guilty.
Not guilty.
Not guilty.
Very well, Mr. Soseki Natsume, I hereby pronounce you not guilty! Woo! And finally, Mr. Natsume. Yes, Lord, sir. You are now a free man once more. It's my hope that you will continue to further your education in British culture. And may you never again be brought before me. Oh yes, sir, of course. All my life, I swear I will never set foot in the courtroom again. I'm transported to tears. Thank you, counsels. Court is adjourned. Ooh. Nice. Ich hab's geschafft. February 3:17 p.m. The Old Bailey defendants and chamber. Oh, Lockham. Wait, you mean me? Of course. Is there another Lockham here? Is there even one? Compared to the original Lockham student, Mr. Naruto Esquire, the name has become rather short, hasn't it? What's wrong with using my actual name? Oh, at least I'm free. I'm free. Joyful, joyous, jubilant, jubilation. Heady, hearty, happiness, hurrah. Oh, I am pleased. Miss Natsume is delighted. Would it be so hard just to say that then? Lockham, you did it. You saved me from the brink. Well, what happened to the poor woman was in no way your fault, after all. I'm just glad everyone can see that now. No, not that. Lovely lawyer, Lockham lawyer. Yes. I mean, as I said before, I have just never got used to life here in Great Britain. Every time I look over my shoulder, I see foreigners. I see soaring brick buildings. And from high up windows, I see them looking down on me, laughing. Look at that little hunchback. Oh dear, I'm sure it's all on your head, Mr. Natsume. But today, you Lockham lawyer gave me gloom to the boot. You stood firm behind that perennial branch before all this babbling British. You battled the bitter end, laying here the baffling truth. And when I beheld the blinding fireworks among the beams of the Bailey's roof, I behold the best barrister ever born. Well, that's very flattering, and we are very pleased for you. This has given me a wonderful anecdote to recount to my old friends back in Japan. An anecdote? That what's become of all my hard work? Ah, there you are, my dear fellows. Ah, hello, Jones. I apologize for keeping you waiting. I was late this morning. Oh, Mr. Jones, what a pleasure to see you. I see, I'm here not a moment too soon. A disaster has been averted, I'm glad to say. Oh? A trial shall begin presently, Mr. Naruto, and I wish you the very best of luck. It's just finished. What? No, then my haste was in vain. Ah, it's you, Herlock Sholmes. Oh, have we met, sir? This is Mr. Natsume, the man you had arrested, Mr. Sholmes? Ah, I see. I failed to recognize you at first. Our previous encounters have taken place in the gloom, either of your black lodgings or that present star. I simply couldn't place that curious face in the light. Charming. This is all your fault, Herlock Sholmes. You are the reason I had to go through this terrible ordeal. I'm going to give you the peace of mind. My apologies, sir, but I assure you I have placed you now. You are the fellow who abandoned the pure young lady and ran off, are you not? Had she been taken to hospital more urgently? I feel perhaps she would have regained consciousness by now. But it was unavoidable, I'm sure. We are but human after all. Anyone would have been shaken by such an experience. I do feel very badly about how I behaved. Well, never mind. Now then, what was it that you wanted to say me, sir? Nothing. Priceless. Oh, I'm so sorry, really, but that was quite priceless. Poor Soseki-san. Still, on the bright side, you have had an extremely entertaining experience without paying a penny, and it would seem you were not even found guilty. But there is no bright side. What do you mean, Mr. Natsume? Even after this, I'm still cursed by the spirits and now by the Reaper. Lord Van Seeks. I haven't forgotten, you know, what facing that man in court means. I mean, if I found not guilty, you're still doomed. It would be alright, Mr. Natsume. Huh? The Reaper appears trying to make trouble. I will protect you. Hiya! Warum nicht? With a perfectly executed Susato's takedown. Much as I like being turned on my head, a bit of warning might be nice next time, Miss Susato. So, Mr. Natsume, what do you intend to do now? You mentioned something about recounting your experiences to your friends back in Japan? Yes, I intend to return to my homeland soon. Oh! It has already been a year since I arrived here in Great Britain. I visited universities, libraries, bookshops. I've been honored with the title of professors. I've learned so much about the wealth of literature here and the city it has shapes, and I've come to realize that it's my calling to sail home to tell my fellow countrymen about it. It's nice. That's very touching, Mr. Natsume. Or, in perhaps less veiled terms, you wish to withdraw how afraid I want the world to escape the terror of the Reaper's curse. That's not at all. The more I learn of literature, the more this strange feeling claws at my insides. I feel compelled to return to my roots and attempt to pen a work of my own. Oh, I see. A work of literature by Soseki-san would be an interesting read. And what about Miss Susato and yourself, Mr. Naruhodo? Sorry, what about us? Will you return to Japan alongside your mustache compatriot? Why would we? A week has not yet passed since we arrived in London. And only now does it feel as though we have finally found our feet. And you are accommodated in a hotel at present, are you not? That's right, but we need to find lodgings before it bankrupts us. I've calculated we can only afford another 10 nights before our entire budget is exhausted. Well then, you could take my lodgings. Oh, the windowless room. But what it lacks in windows, it more than makes up with floor and ceiling and walls. Great. And of course, I'd be happy to leave behind the accursed evil spirit. Oh my, an evil spirit? Oh yes, it tries to suffocate you while you sleep. It's an infallible wake-up call. Well, think about it, if that's alright. Perhaps I can offer a more welcome alternative. Would you consider taking lodgings with me? Really? Well, a vacancy has conveniently presented itself. So it is up in the attic, I muttered. You're sure it isn't just a storage loft? I spoke with the landlady this very morning on the matter of price, and Iris is cleaning the room as we speak. You must come at once. I presume you have no luggage to speak of. Oh, this is simply wonderful. What an honor to be invited to taking lodgings in the Great Detective's office. Attic. I'm too overcome for words. So suggesting we look elsewhere is out then? Then it's settled. Iris will prepare a welcome dinner this evening. And you must come too, Mr. Natsume, I insist. I don't know what to say, but thank you, and yes. Wonderful, then I will go and complete the paperwork for your formal release, Mr. Natsume, and shan't take long. Somebody's happy. Lockham, I knew that you wouldn't let me down. I'm truly delighted to have met you here in London. Likewise, Mr. Natsume, it's been a privilege meeting you too. It's a shame that we are going to have to say goodbye so soon. Well, I've come to realize that I belong in Japan. But Lockham, we will meet again one day. Yes, I'm sure. And hopefully by then I will be a successful lawyer. Hopefully by then I will be a successful author. Well, my dear fellow, our carriage appears to have arrived. shall we go, Mr. Naruto? Yes, Mr. Shops. I have little doubt Mr. Natsume will be released in time for dinner this evening. And so, with Sosagi-san's innocence successfully established, we rode Mr. Shops to what was to become our new home, 221B Baker Street. Oh, the Dachboden, nice. February 4:41 p.m. The attic room. So this is to be our new office. Yes, our office. I rather like the sound of that. And me too. It's simply wonderful, isn't it? I hope you can see this, Kasuma. It's only a small step. But I would like to think we are getting a little closer to your dream now. So, my dear fellows, do you like the place? Oh, Mr. Shomp? Yes, thank you so much. It's a delightful room, Mr. Shomps. I simply adore it. Good, I'm pleased to hear it. Iris and I are delighted to welcome you. I hope everyone's hungry. I nearly time for dinner. We'll eat as soon as Mr. Natsume arrives. We have a lot of celebrate. Iris, you must let me help you. Alright then, Susie. You can be in charge of the salad. Splendid. So, Mr. Naruto, how does it feel to have your own office in the capital? It's very exciting, actually. I can't help wondering what adventures await us. Those were precisely my sentiments when I first established my office at this premises. Until I discovered the dark truth about the city of London, that is... Sorry. London is a glorious place, full of wonder, opportunity, prosperity and mirth. But the brightest of lights cast the darkest of shadows. Shadows, what do you mean? Well, I believe you are well aware of the murkiness that lies behind London's facade already. So, once again, Mr. Naruto. Welcome to London. Es wird spannender und spannender. Of course, at the time, I had no idea of the significance of these words Mr. Shomp so casually spoke. But it wasn't long before my turn came. To lift the facade and see the true depth of the murk that lay behind it. Ah, geschafft! Ich hab's geschafft! Ah. Puh. So. Das nächste Mal geht's dann mit dem 5. Fall weiter. Den 5. und letzten Fall des ersten Spiels. Das zweite Spiel gehört ja auch noch dazu. Besteht auch aus 5 Fällen. Oh. So viel lesen. Und dann wäre ich für heute fertig und werde mal jemanden raten. Ich glaube Sand oder Kira. Ich muss mal gucken. Wäre nice, das mal zu machen. Wo war das noch? Genau, die streamen beide. Werde ich erstmal die Kira raiden. Ich werde auch mit den beiden das nächste Mal, also morgen Abend, sogar Mario Kart spielen. Und genau, und dann raide ich immer und wünsche euch einen Abend. Und bis zum nächsten Mal. Achso, raiden dauert vielleicht, glaube ich, ein bisschen, oder? Und die Werbung dauert immer noch so lang, warte mal. Einen Moment, einen Moment. So lang? So, jetzt aber. Dann gute Nacht und bis zum nächsten Mal.